Hello there, my lovely jewelry makers. In today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this intertwining wire weave, and you get this really nice effect of your weaving wires crossing over and under each other between the base wires. Of course you can use it for whatever you want to. I'm just going to show you the basics of how to make it, so if you want to learn, then stay tuned. So for this weave we'll need 2 lengths of our 1mm base wire here, and make sure they're nice and straight so there's no kinks or bends in them. And then we're going to need 6 separate lengths here of our 0.4mm weaving wire. Now to get started with a weave, what I'm going to do first of all is separate our wires into 2 groups. So of the weaving wires here, I'm just going to have 3 in each group, and then I'm going to add 1 of the base wires to each group. So this is just how we're going to start out. So I'm going to be working with kind of 1 group at a time. So I start off with grabbing my first base wire here, and also 1 of my lengths of weaving wires for this group, and I'm going to work towards one end on both of them. So I just take the end of my weaving wire, put it behind the base wire, and just leave a short little tail, kind of just to hold on to. Then what I'm going to do is we need to attach the weaving wire to the base wire, so I'm going to wrap it around one whole time, and twice, and a 3rd time. So for now, I also just want to make sure my wraps here nice and tight. You can easily just use some chain nose pliers or flat nose and push them together. So I have my tail kind of going upwards, and then I have my working length of the wire going downwards here, and I wrapped around 3 times. Now you want to attach the rest of the weaving wires for this group in the same way. So you grab the next one, again place the wire behind the base wire, leaving a short tail to hold on to, and you just want to place this after, right next to the first weaving wire that you attached, and hold on to it, and you literally just do the same thing. Wrap this wire around the base wire once, twice, and a 3rd time. Push the wires down nice and tight so they're sitting right next to each other like that. And again we then have 3 wraps with the working length of the wire coming straight down. And of course you just want to then attach the last wire in the same way, so you have them sitting right next to each other. And that then looks like this. So I have my 3 lengths of weaving wire attached to this base wire here, ready for when starting the actual weave. But we just gotta work with the other group as well and get that ready. So we grab the base wire from the other group there, and our first weaving wire, and we're kind of going to do the same thing but just mirrored. So again, working towards the ends, and in this case here I'm then going to take my weaving wire towards the end of it, just leave a short little tail like before, but now put it on top of my base wire. Just grab hold of that tail, and same principle then, wrap it around the base wire once, twice, and a 3rd time. And again, just kind of push them together, so sitting close to each other. And then we end up with the same principle as before. We have the little tail kind of going up and away, and then the working length is facing down. Then grab your next length of weaving wire, again leave a little tail, put it over the top of the base wire, sitting next to the first one that we attached. Use that tail to hold on to, and then you want to just wrap this around again once, twice, and one more time. And don't worry about, you can see here they're not sitting right next to each other, but that doesn't matter right now, because first of all I just want to make sure these are nice and tight, and then you can see they move on the wire, so you can just push them down close together once you've attached them. And you just want to attach the final weaving wire in this group in the same way. So now I have all 3 lengths of my weaving wire attached in this group as well. And now we basically need to put the 2 groups together, which is also going to then start making the actual weave itself. But before I do this group that I just made where I put the wire over before I attached it, what I'm going to do with that is actually just flip it upside down. So you have the long ends, so the working lengths coming out and upwards and away from you. Because what I'm then going to do is grab the other group that we already made, and then we'll put them together. They're going to sit basically opposite like this. Now this first bit can be quite fiddly. It's definitely the most fiddly part until you get going, because obviously everything is kind of still loose. But they're going to then end up sitting like this. So I kind of want to just take a bit of time, try and even everything out. So just these tails, just leave them down, going away from the piece. You can still use them to hold on to, but otherwise we're just going to finish them off at the end. Now, to get started, make sure that all these weaving wires are sitting next to each other nice and close. So you can see as they move up and down the wire, make sure they're sitting properly so we don't end up with any gaps. Now it's up to you as well how much of a distance you want between the base wires here, because that's completely customizable really. But to get started with the weave and kind of attach the two groups together, I'm gonna try and keep this about this space in between my base wires. Now what you can also do is kind of make a little, not measuring tool, but use some wire where you kind of make some loops and openings, and you can take them on and off the ends here. But it will be more fiddly to obviously weave, but it will help keep the distance between them, but that's up to you. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to start from the bottom side here, it doesn't really matter, and making sure that the wires are sitting there on opposite sides as much as symmetrical as possible really. So what we're then going to do to get the weave started is I'm going to start from the bottom. So I have my 3 weaving wires here. I'm going to take the very bottom one and bring it over the base wire. So continue the wrap that was already there to attach the wire. Bring it over into the middle, and then what I'm going to do is bring it down between the 2 base wires. So like this. Just keep trying to make sure that your wires are sitting right next to each other. Like I said in the beginning here, it's the most fiddly part. Once we've done a few wraps and everything is kind of fastened in place, it becomes much easier. But then I'm taking this, making sure that it's wrapped in towards the middle, and then I'm going to go underneath the base wire on the opposite side, but next to the other wraps, so all the other weaving wires. Bring it up and around. Now what you'll find is, as you're doing this and the whole weave, as we're wrapping the weaving wires, the base wires are going to naturally want to pull together, which is why it's important to keep that same distance that we want throughout. Just keep an eye on that. So whenever they start pulling together, just separate them out again. So I'm then coming down between the base wires again. So basically making a full wrap. So the very first wrap on the opposite side. Something a bit like that. Now we need some space in between the wires. So basically the same wraps that we did when we attached them. Done one wrap. Making sure I kind of keep my base wires nicely distant. 2 wraps. Bring it around again. Down between for the 3rd one. Again, what you can do, you can get in there a little bit better with your pliers. Make sure they're pushed nice and tight together. And then have this weaving wire come up and away. So basically right now what we've ended up with is 2 weaving wires on the bottom and 4 on the top, because one has swapped over to the other side. So that's the first movement, you could say, of the weave itself. Now what we need to do is go to the other side, because that one now has the most weaving wires. So just take a bit of time to sort out all your lengths here, because we don't want to get them tangled up. We need to make sure we take the correct one. So we need to always start with the bottom one, the very first one. So I get that ready, bring that over. So now it's downwards, we're working from the top, bringing it down in towards the middle. We kind of finish the initial wrap from when we attached them. Now bring it down between the two base wires to come beneath the bottom base wire, just like we did with the first one, but it's just working from the top to the bottom instead of the bottom to the top. And you can see we've ended up with the weaving wires there crossing in the middle. Now as you're doing these first few wraps, make sure we adjust anything we need to. So now that we're on this side, we need to then also wrap this length around this base wire here. So wrap it around once before I completely wrap it. Make sure that the base wires are not tightening up, and if they are, just open them up a little bit. So that's once, twice, and a third time, like that. And then it comes straight down, and we're now back to having 3 on the bottom side and 3 on the top side. And this is basically the principle of the whole weave, because I'm now moving to the opposite side that I just used. So I'm going to the bottom side here, and we're going to start with the bottom one again. So a new bottom one, because the previous bottom one has moved to the opposite side there. So I start with bringing it, kind of completing that first initial wrap where we attached it, and then over and in towards the middle and down between the two base wires over towards the other side. And you can see that then crosses over the wire that we just brought down from the opposite side there and attached on the bottom. And of course, keep the base wires the distance that we want. We then want to wrap this on the top side now. So this is now swapping sides. Once, twice, making sure the base wires don't get too close together, and one more time, and then bring it up to sit. So we now have 4 on the top side and 2 on the bottom. So that's what it's going to be like, because it doesn't matter, like I said, what side you start with. Because I started with the bottom side here, that's why I'm going to have 2 on that side and 4 on the other side through some of it. But then when I take the bottom one on the top side here, we go back to having 3 and 3. So it kind of just works itself out anyway. But that's then, you can then also, that helps see which one you have to take next, because I just moved from the bottom to the top. I then need to bring the very bottom one on this top side to the opposite side, because we need to go back to having 3 and 3. So I bring that over into the middle. Just bring the wire all the way over. And then of course, like the other times, bring it down between the base wires so we can cross over to the opposite side here. Make sure everything is pushed nice and close together. And that then crosses over the previous wire that we just wrapped. You can use your pliers if you need to straighten any of the wire out as well, because you can get in there where you can't really get in with your fingers. But then on this side here, we need to wrap this. Attach it by wrapping it once, twice, and a third time. And now we're back to having 3 and 3. And you can really start to see the effect that we're going to get. Obviously right now we have these tails a little bit in the way, but a couple more wraps and you can really see the effect of kind of weaving over and over that we're going to get in between the base wires. So you just basically want to keep doing this. Always start from with the very first one on the side that you're due to take, and then swap from side to side. And just the main thing really is to keep the distance between the base wires the distance that you want throughout. So now gone for a bit longer, and you can really then start to see the effect that we get. So the really nice kind of intertwining effect of the weaving wires. And I just want to then mention, like I have said earlier, it's you that really decide how wide you want this to be, and you just do that with the distance between the base wires. So for instance, if I wanted this to start getting wider, you can also vary it throughout. It doesn't have to be the same width throughout the whole same weave. So what you can do is start to make these wider as you're weaving and kind of graduate it. So make sure they go wider as you're wrapping the wires around, and obviously make sure they don't pull closer as you're doing it. So bring the bottom one over to the opposite side, wrap around the whole 3 times, and then come upwards and away. So we now have 4 on that top side, and then bring the first one from that side down towards the opposite side, and then making sure as I'm bringing it in between the base wires, I'm going to wrap that I have the distance between the base wires is starting to get wider, if that's what you'd want. Obviously you can also do narrower. It's just to kind of show you the variations. It doesn't have to be just the same distance throughout. So that's just how you would do that. The distance between the base wires is what determines the width of the weave itself. So I now finished the weave here, and just to show you what it looks like. So you can see the difference between the narrow area and then the wider area there. So you kind of get even more of a sense of the pattern with the weaving wire lengths that are crossing over each other, over and under, over and under. And it gives that really nice effect. And of course it looks really nice on that narrow end as well. So it just really depends on the look that you want. Just to show you, this is the other side. It looks like this. So it's the same principle. This is kind of the other side of the weave. So this is what it looks like. So I hope you enjoyed the tutorial for this wire weave here. Of course you can use it for whatever you want to. This is just to show you how to make the basic weave itself. But also check out my channel. I have loads of other tutorials for different wire weaves that might be helpful. But thank you so much for watching this one, and I'll see you in the next one.